and that was fun. So we had just taken over a ship, and this is an old. You said this was an older, module. Basically, you were using from the
Hmm.
80s, right? The Ghost of
Mm-hmm.
Saltmarsh thing, where the descriptions were very specific, like the lantern swinging from the boards on the ceiling, and is it lit or unlit, and the tables bolted to the floor, that kind of
The
thing.
chairs are upright. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I go back and forth on box text. I'll read box text when it's really good. I'll read box text when I have like brand new players. I'm like, this is a part of the game that you should know what this means when someone says boxed text. Um, I because it's I don't want to say bad is maybe too strong of a word, but like
yeah,
antiquated
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like so it, like talk about like wall of text. I've been reading the room descriptions occasionally from this module, not because they're good, not because I enjoyed them.
Yeah. Well, it reflects an era, and I think
Yes.
that's what's interesting too. I just this isn't D&D. Well, it could be D&D related, but it's I just got a call, an email. It says there's a call for extras for a film that they're going to film nearby. It's too far away for me to do, and it's not pay. It doesn't pay that well, but they're looking for extras, and you're going to be in a prison. You're going to be either a cellmate, you're someone in a cell, or you're going to be a guard, or you're going to be in the background kind of thing. But no face or neck tattoos, no buzz cuts, no shaved heads. So it's because and it says because it's this takes place in the 1980s. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, yeah, that's interesting. Even prisoners didn't have as many tattoos in the
Yeah.
1980s as you see now. Like, has it's just the form of fashion has changed, and the same thing with descriptions in D&D, and the way D&D was played then is different. In fact, I went over the new alignment texts, and I'll do a whole separate video on that, and the way that alignment is still a thing, which is kind of cool, but like that goes way back. And
Oh, sure.
and I just watched a video where a guy unboxed a starter set for D&D second edition. And I think
Mm.
it was copyrighted like 1995. And he was reading through, and it had all the alignments, but it said specifically like player characters cannot play evil characters.
Mm.
These are for NPCs. Every description under chaotic evil, neutral evil, and lawful evil said these NPCs, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, and it was interesting the way they described them as well. But it was also like interesting that, they didn't even allow, they had that caveat in there because there was this big scare back then about games
I'm
being
sure that's a
evil.
lot of it. I'm
Yeah.
sure the satanic panic is a big
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
It's also like harder if you're gonna have an evil character, you need an evil campaign. You're gonna make life worse for everybody else at the table if you show up with a chaotic evil character to a vanilla or like a standard D&D game, right? If someone's like, well, I'm gonna slit my party members' throats so I can get a bigger share of the treasure, no one's gonna want to continue to play with you unless that's the game we've all agreed to play, right?
Yeah, so there's Avernus, Descent into Avernus is a thing now. So like there's places where you could, incorporate like that sort of character, and you could even you could have a redemption cycle, or you could have, just no, that's the way things operate in Avernus, and like that's what's going to happen. But I think yeah, there's an agreement, there's a social contract at the beginning of the campaign.
Mhm.
I'm in a Spelljammer campaign. I'll be there tonight. And it the man who advertised it on the Discord said evilish Spelljammer campaign. So we're basically space pirates,
Yeah.
So it's okay. So I'm playing an astral elf, and they're usually the bad guys. So it's fun to play the bad guy with, you know, so it's like, yeah, we're lawless, but we well, it's like the lizard men. You have a different set of moral ethics, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
my solution to like an evil camp, well, not my solution, but my like hack for like running an evil campaign without um just like inventing a new game. You just need a bigger big bad, right? Like I don't care how evil you are, if the was away, then you go away with it, or like all of the stuff that you covet, right? Be it power or treasure or whatever.
Yeah.
All that stuff's under threat. So you're going to respond to this threat without being a hero. You're going to take on the world-ending cataclysmic
Yeah,
bad guy.
you have to have a conflict. There's no drama without conflict. So,
Right.
it's either you're gonna gain something by doing something, or you're gonna lose something by not doing something, maybe. Those are pretty basic human drives, right? That's what drives fear, anxiety, all that kind of stuff.
And interestingly, I like Saltmarsh a lot because it creates that conflict within the party, which you need the a level of experience and like trust within the group. But like you guys, after we've sussed out like 2014 versus 2024 versus what all of the above, we'll figure it out as we go, as we're changing the tires while driving the car.
Right,
Um, whoops.
right.
The the decision to like, all right, we just took over a pirate ship filled with smuggled goods. We can turn it in for a reward, or we can try to sell the smuggled goods for way more money. And like we could go take like we've coerced some of the crew that we didn't kill to like crew this ship because the four of us can't, we're not enough to make a sailing ship work for very long. Um, so
Yeah,
you
let's
guys had a
just
lot of decisions to make and had a lot of conversations about like
Yeah, we
that there
did.
was,
And we have one character with a sailor background, and that's like
mm,
amazing. So like backgrounds are one of the things that are emphasized in the new version of the rules. And backgrounds sometimes come into play in regular D&D 5e, but in this case, one character in particular has a sailor background. So he's been getting a lot of more role play, and we've been deferring to him for a lot, his character for a lot of decision making, because I think that's what the other characters would do, right? They're like ones, I don't remember everybody's background. I know um Mike's character is kind of like from another realm. So
yeah.
like, yeah, so she was never hands-on with a boat, I don't think, in her background. I think I had a soldier background, and then yeah, I'm not sure what Tiefling had. And then yeah, so it's interesting. And I think incorporating all that, and that's the thing, like metagaming is easy to do, especially if you know the game, but it's so much more fun for me to figure out what my character would do next, right?
Yeah, and I think that was some of the conflict within the system, right? I saw it like shaking itself apart a little bit last night, and I've been practicing like interview doing less and less and less as a dungeon master. I don't have to always control the pace. You guys talking about what we're gonna do next is like peak D&D. Um, but I think I could do a better job pushing it down to the level of like in game. In fact, at one point you said like, okay, let's role play this out. We've been up here for two, like I'm okay going up here, but it seemed like we spent so much time up here that like we got to that point of like we're trying to win the game. Like, how can we have this both ways? What's the most
Yeah,
optimal way to play this as a game?
yeah.
And like one, that's an impossible task. You're not going to thread that needle. You have to choose a lane because we're not playing a video game. We're telling a story. Um,
Even a good
Um,
video game, you can't do it. That's
right,
what replayability is all about, right?
right.
So yeah, so yeah, so basically we had two things we could do. One, well, there were a few, I mean, the world's your oyster, but basically there were two logical choices. One was to like go and resume the mission of the existing crew after we killed, before we killed the captain. And that was to deliver weapons for these lizard men, and fulfill that task, get the payment, and then we could do whatever we wanted with the crew and the ship afterwards, or immediately turn around, go to Salt Marsh and just say, here's what we found. There's lizard men, there's this smuggling crew that you guys been after, and here's all this stolen stuff, and sit and say like, well, okay, thanks for the 200 gold. We'll be on our way, which is what the town council was going to had offered us for the mission to begin with. But instead, there was like Electrum to be had, and there was there was a giant crate on board. We didn't realize that, but it was trapped, which was awesome. There was a pseudo dragon that spied on us, which was awesome. Yeah, there was some really good flavor in this one. So we're, as players and metagaming, we're talking about what we're going to do next. It turns out that there was a stealth check that the pseudo dragon did, and he just happened to be like on the rigging, like right above us, listening to us the whole time, speaking in Elvish, Common, who knows? But like for whatever, we don't know what languages a pseudo dragon can translate to its lizard folk companions. So
someone rolled in that one to figure that. Like I gave you a shot. Like, does this thing understand us? I was like, I'll give you history or Arcana. Arcana's really the one. And there's in that one. I was like, you have no idea.
Yeah, right.
But it smiled at you and winked and then flew away. So
yeah, that's pretty funny. But actually, and the thing is, that's the sort of conversation we had, which was, do we betray our passengers or do we fulfill their mission, is exactly the sort of conversation a pirate crew would have, right? Or a smuggling crew would have. So that's not terribly out of character. It didn't seem like, in fact, it would almost be more suspicious if it didn't happen. So I was cool, with like just letting it ride. And as it turned out, it didn't really ruffle any feathers or scales.
And it's funny, you didn't realize at first, like you came out and said there's been like a change of management, right? But like the lizard folk only saw you only saw the captain's jacket that you have commandeered
that is
from the dead
handy.
captain. So he's like, oh, I didn't realize you were a different person because you all look the same to me.
Yeah, don't care. Yeah, squishy, fleshy, no scales. Yeah, that's what you would see if you were a lizard folk, right?
Well, I mean, I can't tell lizards apart very well.
Not unless they have some distinctive markings, like a long red captain's coat, right?
Yes.
So that's the first thing you're going to see. Actually, it's really interesting. So there was a documentary that I watched that was about CIA or OSS, like World War II, kind of like techniques of like disguise, right? And one of the things they did was almost the less intuitive thing, which was to go obvious, right? So if you do something like you make yourself look like a homeless person, people are going to want to like turn away from you and not attract, and if you act eccentric, people are going to like tend to like pretend they're not seeing you, right? So if your mission is to not be observed and seen, but to be present in a location where you're going to be visible, but not like have anybody like really inspect you, then that might be one way to go, right? Like cover yourself in some dirt, like dishevel your clothes, not necessarily smell bad, but maybe look like you're going to smell bad so people won't come in with it within a certain range of you, right? So, those are kind of things that like I try to take some of those ideas and throw them into my characters, because a lot of the characters, this character in particular, I'm playing a rogue, so there's a lot of deception, there's a lot of disguise, there's, infiltration, that kind of thing. Although we walked right in, we sailed basically right in to the lizard folks' mound and almost met the queen. We met like one of her like royal advisors or whatever the equivalent is. So that was a really neat thing. But then we split the party by doing so, which is always fun for a DM. So talk about maybe for other DMs. What do you do in the party splits?
I'm more and more comfortable doing that because it creates more and more interesting scenes. If I don't act, I don't like, oh, the gate drops and now the party's split, right? Like I don't actively split the party, but if the party decides and everyone at the table understands like maybe one side's going to be more interesting than the other, or I have to now spread the spotlight around. There's going to be some ping ponging. You're going to do less for some of it, and I will enforce consequences, right? Like you aren't like I will say like you're not there. You don't get to, like you don't get to you didn't talk about that. You talk like I gave the again I don't push. I give you guys a ton of time to like figure out the plan and execute. And then someone's like, well, when you're over there, you should do this. Like, well, no, you did not say that. And now it's you can split the party, but there's consequences. You can do twice as much. However, there's no unless you have, there's ways to get there, but maybe not at second level,
There
third
were
level.
there were two moments where I bit my lip, where I silenced myself because I was not present with what was going on. So the one that I remember like most was later the party split. After we get back from the Lizard Bomb, we get back on, we're all on board the ship. There's 4 active members in the party. We devise a plan to get the crew drunk so that 2 of the party members can go on shore, inform the local authorities, and they can come with like a naval flotilla or whatever, and like and help us to get the pirate crew off the ship, because there are more of them than us. We didn't want to fight them, or they're about as many. We didn't want to fight them, and we just wanted to turn them in basically. And we were trying to figure out a way to do that. So, but we sent the 2 least charismatic characters back to Saltmarsh to talk to the
I
local
wouldn't say. I mean,
authorities.
once you said that you sent the paladin, he's super charismatic. He's just
Oh, oh,
he's
right.
gonna.
Oh, I meant like, did he have charisma as a is that one of his good stats? I don't know.
Well, I hope so. He's a paladin. That's like his
Oh, that
like
makes
base.
sense. That would be
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
strength and then charisma, right?
But he's a paladin.
But he's got
It's
morals.